Michigan House of Representatives has passed some sweeping reforms on the controversial practice of asset forfeiture.
Recently, the 7 investigators uncovered how that practice intended to take money and property obtained through criminal activity can actually make innocent people victims by seizing property from people who are never charged with a crime.
Yeah, according to Michigan State Police records, police seized more than $24 million in assets in 2013. That money is typically used for things like hiring new workers or buying new equipment because many police budgets have been drastically cut. Some say the departments depend on forfeitures to make up the difference.
Well, Michigan is considered one of the worst offenders in this. Recently, the Institute for Justice gave our state's forfeiture laws a D-. And that's led to a bipartisan effort in Lansing to reform the laws.
That's right. Just yesterday, the House overwhelmingly passed laws that would make it tougher for police to seize your property. They would require clear and convincing evidence that a car, a boat, or other property was part of a criminal enterprise before it's seized. Another bill would make it more difficult to seize property if someone only has a small amount of marijuana.
Well, joining us right now is Representative Jeff Irwin, who helped lead the charge for these bills in the House. Thank you, Representative, for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on.
Now, some of these bills passed 107 to 2. Tell us why so much cooperation on this battle right here.
Well, there's broad bipartisan support, and I have to give the House leadership and Speaker Kevin Cotter and especially Representative Kesto, the chair of the Judiciary Committee, a lot of credit for bringing folks together on this. This was a coming together of Democrats and Republicans because we're all Americans. We all believe in the Constitution, and the Fourth and Fifth Amendment guarantee us due process and protection from unreasonable search and seizure. And we believe that you should be innocent until proven guilty. And unfortunately, civil asset forfeiture has been turning that on its head.
How long do you think that this has been going on, and kind of what brought it to light now that you thought there needed to be a change?
Well, I don't know exactly how long it's been going on, but these laws were invented several decades ago to give police the tools to go after drug kingpins and gang organizations. And over the years, the police agencies have sometimes used these tools against innocent people. They've sometimes used it against very, very low-level criminals, like people who have small amounts of marijuana. And that's not right. We need to restore this tool to where it's supposed to be used against major, major criminals, and also provide some more transparency and accountability so that the citizens know whether this tool is really being used appropriately or whether it's just being used against low-level criminals.
Mr. Irwin, let's talk about the one closer vote, and it was on your bill saying a small amount of marijuana should not be a basis for forfeiture. Now, if the marijuana isn't for medical purposes, why can't that be a basis for seizure, regardless of the amount someone may have in their car or on their body?
Sure. Well, the idea of these asset forfeiture laws was to go after major criminals and to give the law enforcement community options to hit these big drug kingpins where it hurt, even if they didn't catch them with a lot of drugs. These laws were not meant to go after small-time marijuana users. And so we had a pretty strong majority reaffirming that principle in the state house. I hope that we can get support in the state senate for that notion. Asset forfeiture shouldn't be used against misdemeanors. It should be reserved for major criminals and felonies and drug organizations. It was really designed for the Pablo Escobars and the Young Boys Incorporated, not for your average marijuana smoker on the street.
Mr. Irwin, tell me, how do we put the power back in the hands of the people? Our Ross Jones, an investigator here at Channel 7, did a story on a woman who had medical marijuana, and the police wouldn't listen to her. And she said, you know, I have paperwork here that says I'm allowed to use medical marijuana, and she was hurt by it and had to go through the legal system, and it cost her a lot of money. So what do people do to protect themselves?
Well, those kinds of stories are why we're moving this legislation. We heard some hair-raising stories of people who've really, been abused by the system. Folks who've had, all of their possessions taken, even though they were bona fide patients and trying to comply with the law, oftentimes in compliance with the law. People often have their assets taken when they're never charged or convicted. So this is exactly what we're trying to stop with this action in the House. And, hopefully we can get the same sort of action out of the Senate. What should people do? They should fight the forfeiture. But the reason why sometimes people don't fight the forfeiture is because it might cost them thousands of dollars to get back their car, and the government will give them their car for maybe $1,000 or $900, like they do in Wayne County.
Representative, even if these, let me just say, even if these changes are good and should be taking place, I have a feeling that there will be some police departments that won't have as much money as they usually have because of this, right or wrong, in the way that they were collecting it before. Do you expect them to say, hold on here, what's going to happen to our budgets and we need more money?
Yeah, well, I agree with them. They do need more money. We need to more appropriately fund our public safety efforts. But we also don't want to have insidious incentives built into the system that encourage our police agencies to go after medical marijuana patients who might have some money on hand rather than going after meth labs and heroin dealers. That's where their focus should be. And do they need money to go after those bad guys? Absolutely. But the problem is these laws encourage them to go after folks who are obeying the law, and that's not right.
No.
Let me ask you one last question before we let you go. What about the rogue police officers who take people's money and take their cars and then use it for their own personal gain? I mean, will the laws be against them as well if law enforcement abuse their privileges and hurt people in our community?
Well, there absolutely has to be accountability for folks who violate the law, and there should be a high standard for folks in law enforcement. But I do want to say that, we know, or I should say I know, that most of the folks in law enforcement, they're there to protect and serve. They want to protect the community, and they do want to focus on the major criminals, not on small-time petty stuff. So, we should all work together, and we need to give some good resources to our public safety officers so that they can do a good job.
Yep, so make it easier, I guess, and help them give some guidelines to do that for sure. Representative Irwin, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for the opportunity.